People would walk up to my table and they'd sit down and they were curious. They were distracted by my facial paralysis. And not in a judging way. Well, why? And I found that that detracted from their enjoyment of the magic. I said, I would open my show and say, guys, my name is John. I've been doing magic all my life. In 2002, I had a brain tumor. When they cut out my brain, they traumatized my facial nerve, hence the paralyzed face. But something happened to me on the operating room table. Now, I'm not sure what it was because I was unconscious. All I know is I recovered. I realized I had acquired some new skills. And then I would pause. And I would wait for all the audience members to get on the edge of their chair, wanting desperately to know what kind of skills I could have acquired from having brain surgery. And I would look to my right and my left, and I would lean in and whisper in a loud voice, guys, I think I'm able to visualize people's thoughts. And then I would go do some mental magic. And what that did, without me realizing it, was that took my biggest life challenge and turned it into my superpower.
Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. I'm so honored to have John Kippen on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. John is a motivational speaker, resilience and empowerment coach, professional magician, and a best-selling author. And I'd love to start there. Tell us a little bit about your book. I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
It's called Playing the Hand You Were Dealt. It's a motivational memoir filled with lots of fun stories of things that I've done in my life. It's filled with QR codes. So as you're reading it, you scan the QR code with your phone or click on it if you're looking at the digital version. And it takes you to a secret area on my website where there's more multimedia content. So
Amazing.
yeah, it's my life story in 233 pages. And the cool thing is that Jamie Lee Curtis wrote the foreword for me.
So cool. That's amazing.
Been a long time friend in computer
Yeah.
club.
That's so amazing. And I would love to just go as a beautiful segue because I would love for you to share your story. Like I was saying, I watched your TED Talk and it was so impactful just to hear what you've experienced and how you took something that was so challenging and transmuted it into a really beautiful story. And I would love for you to share what brought you here today.
Absolutely. So I grew up in the Los Angeles, Southern California area. Had everything I needed, two great parents, private school, went to Cal State Northridge, studied theater. I from a very young age, I learned that it was better to live life with going after your passions and not asking permission, but asking forgiveness instead. And that gave me some amazing opportunities. Got me into trouble a couple times,
I'm
but
sure, right?
overall, it's given me opportunities I would never have had, like performing for Alex Trebek while he was going through his cancer treatments, and just amazing opportunities. So everything was going great in my life. I started a computer consulting company out of college. And then in 2002, I started having dizziness and hearing issues, which weren't going away on their own. Excuse me. So I went to ENT and they tested me and didn't see anything wrong. So they continued to get worse. So I went to a ENT part of my medical plan so that they could order an MRI and I didn't have to pay for it. And funny, the MRI tech was saying, "Okay, we'll give the films to the radiologist and he'll get back to your doctor in the next couple days." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no. That's not my style. How much for that set of films you just printed?" And they went, "Oh, no, no, those go to the radiologist." And I said, "No, I heard you the first time, but I want to buy those films. I want to take them with me." No one had ever asked that question. So they researched it and said $300. So I pulled out my Visa and gave my Visa, and I took the films back immediately to my ENT without an appointment.
Mhm.
And I walked in, and he saw the concerned look on my face and said, "Okay, John, come in." And he put the first film up on the little light board, and the color drained from his face.
Mm.
And he took it down and said, "John, I think I see something. I'm not an expert in this kind of thing, but I know someone who is. Sit there, relax, and I'm going to make a couple appointments for you."
Mm.
And the next thing I know, I'm driving downtown to the best ear clinic in Los Angeles and had a meeting with a world-renowned brain surgeon. And it was like a movie. I'm sitting there on the examining bench, squirming a little bit and hearing the tissue paper tear under my butt. And
Mhm.
surgeon comes in, he puts the first MRI up on his light board, and then gets on the phone, called a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon comes in. They have a conversation, quick.
Mhm.
Neurosurgeon leaves, and the doctor turns to me and says, "John, you have a 4.5 centimeter acoustic neuroma.
Mm. Wow.
It's displacing your brain stem and it's killing you.
Mm.
We've already pushed a patient this Friday. We're operating on this Friday. It's going to be a 14 to 16-hour surgery. You're going to go deaf in your left ear. We're going to do everything we can to preserve facial function, but there's no guarantees."
Mm.
And he left the room.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sitting there going, wait, what did he just say? Was that
Mm.
a 4-hour surgery? Was it? So I had all these questions. So I I'm my own best medical advocate. I don't let the medical system run over me. I'm paying the monthly dues for my insurance. I'm gonna go out and find this doctor and bring him back to the room and ask more questions. And I did. And he spent
Yeah.
another half hour with me and said, "John, I really gotta go, but you can always call me. Here's my cell phone number if you have any more questions." So I was still in shock. I learned a hard lesson that I didn't bring anybody with me to that appointment, and that's
Mm.
a bad idea.
Yeah. It's
You
really bad.
gotta bring someone with you just to take notes, to
Mhm.
listen to things, because you're gonna have memory lapses. You're gonna be in shock.
Mhm.
And you're not gonna remember what they say, and you don't want to bug the doctor. But
Mhm.
you could bug your best friend, your parent, your sister, whoever, who took notes to answer those questions for you. Well, I had a week to put my affairs in order and get someone to take over my consulting company because I had no idea how long I was going to be under. And my parents took me to dinner the night before and dropped me off at the hospital. The nurse said, "Get a few hours of sleep. I know it'll be tough, but we'll we'll come and get you at 6 a.m." So 6 a.m. the next morning, the doctor or the orderly knocks on the door. He says, "Okay, John, get undressed, get in this gown, and hop on the table." And there I'm laying on this table, and he's rolling me down the hallway, and all I see is these fluorescent tubes passing me, like I'm in a tunnel, right? And I get to the pre-op area, and one of the nurses with a mask puts on, and she says, "Do you want me to shave your head now or after you're under?"
Mm.
I was like, "After I'm under, please." And then another woman leans over and said, "John, nice to meet you. My name is so and so. I'm your anesthesiologist. Um, well, one small problem. My assistant just called me and said that my services are not under your medical plan. So here's
Mm.
a clipboard and a pen to sign your rights away." And I knew, living with two parents as attorneys, that was going to be signed under duress. So I knew I would never have to pay that bill. So I
Mhm.
gladly signed it.
Mhm.
You know, she had my
Yeah.
life in her hands. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I go into surgery, and it's 5, 4, 3, and I'm out.
Mm.
And I wake up in surgical recovery 15, 16 hours later, and it's like I'm 20 meters under the water in a pool, trying
Mm.
to swim to the surface. And I can hear people, "John." wake up, John. I didn't know whose voice was there. I didn't know. I was just trying to get to the surface. And when they finally came to, my dad was sitting on the edge of the bed holding my hand.
Mhm.
But I looked around the room and I needed glasses. So I looked around the room and I didn't see anybody else. So I asked my dad for glasses and I tried to put them on and realized my head was bandaged.
Mm.
So, they kind of went on cockeyed. And I looked and my mom was standing in the corner. And the look on her face was one of horror.
Mm.
What did these butchers do to my son's poor face?
Oh, God.
And at that point, that's when I realized that something had gone wrong and my face was paralyzed.
Mm.
So the next time the surgeon came in, I asked him about it. He said, John, I wouldn't worry about it. Uh, you had full facial function until we closed the incision, and we think it's just swelling. And once the swelling goes down, your facial paralysis will go away. So, um, I was patient. I was hopeful,
Mhm.
and spent a week in the hospital. Got home, developed a spinal fluid leak. Had to go back to the hospital for a second procedure, which was only an overnight stay. Got home and started healing,
Mhm.
and I preoccupied myself by talking to clients on the phone and doing a little computer work, but I could I could stay up 2 or 3 hours a day without a nap.
Mm.
But I
Mhm.
made the most of those 2 or 3 hours, watched a lot of TV and just laid on my couch and tried to relax and try to heal.
Mhm.
But the more I looked in my mirror, the more my facial paralysis started to bug me to the point where I covered all of the mirrors in my house. Um, I didn't want to see that reflection. But the doctor said make sure once a month, once every couple of weeks or whatever, you look in the mirror and you try to smile and see if there's any movement. So I had a little portable mirror that I got from my uncle, who was the magician who got me involved in doing magic. And it was
Mm.
his practice mirror. And so I would hold the mirror up and try to smile and nothing.
Mm.
And then I put the mirror away. And so I hid from life for 12 years
Mm.
because I didn't like the person who was looking back at me. I didn't recognize him. And fortunately, I had a business that I could stay at home and run it from home.
Mm.
So I didn't have to constantly have the questions, hey, what happened? How are you? What's going on? I because I didn't have any answers for him.
Yeah.
And in my TED talk, I tell a story about I wanted to go get a burger, so I went to this local burger joint restaurant, and I'm sitting there at a booth having dinner. And this little boy is sitting in the booth in front of him, and he's fidgety. So he turns around and faces me, and his head's kind of doing one of those cockeyed, huh? And
Mm.
he gets up and walks over and he says, Mister, what's wrong with your face?
Mm.
And in that moment, I knew I had two choices. One, I could tell him just go back to eating. I didn't want to talk about it. Or it could be a great teachable moment for this little boy. So I started to explain to him in kids' terms of what was going on. And his mom noticed him and immediately got up and grabbed him by the arm and yanked him back to the table and said, don't bother the nice man. He has enough troubles already.
Mm.
And at that point, I knew that I had to go and finish the story. So I walked over there and knelt down so I was eye level with the boy. And I said, you had a great question, and I'm going to answer it. I had a medical procedure that made me not to be able to move my face, but it's my new face. And I like it because it's cool.
Mhm.
Well, it's different, just like yours. And the little boy, without missing a beat, grabbed his fingers and started to manipulate his face to look like mine. And
Mhm.
turned to his mom and said, look, Mom, I can do that too.
Mhm.
And as I got up and looked at the parents, excuse me, they were so thankful that
Mhm.
I, risked being embarrassed. I risked, you know, little boys saying something inappropriate just to
Mhm.
teach their entire family a lesson. And
Yeah.
so the TED Talk you talked about,
Mhm.
which has over 1 million views, the idea was how to treat people who are different. with respect and compassion.
Yeah, it's so meaningful. I mean, thank you again for sharing your story. And there was something that stood out to me in that TED talk where you talk about you transformed the shame to that acceptance. And that's such a powerful statement where you saw that transition in the parents where they were shameful of what their son was saying, and then you allowed them the gift of acceptance and being able to share that gift of accepting people
Yeah,
for who they are. And I
I
think that's
gave them a huge gift without
such
them,
a gift.
just because we're all different and we all have things we hide from, and some of us do it better than others. And
Mhm.
um, that's why I really started coaching,
Yeah.
is because I help people kind of uncover those things they're hiding and put them in perspective.
I'm
You know,
curious what your journey with acceptance was. I know you said you're hiding out for 12 years and not showing your face. What did that look like in those 12 years as you started to accept the newer aspects of yourself and then have such a public persona with the magic work and everything you're doing? What did that look like from the total opposites of hiding out to them being in front of so many people?
the hiding became easy. It became a habit.
Mhm.
And before I knew it, I looked at the calendar and I'm like, gee, many Christmas. I've been hiding for 10 years. I
Wow.
was miserable. I was lonely. I
Mhm.
lived alone. My girlfriend had left me. Um, I had my own house, I had a dog, but I didn't see friends. I didn't see new people. I wasn't dating. I wasn't, enjoying life. I missed so many high school reunions and college reunions that I finally decided I was going to get out. And I started playing semi-professional poker at a
Mhm.
local poker club, which was a 20-minute drive from my house. Because at a poker table, no one cares what you look like. They just want your money.
Right. Mhm. Yeah.
And but I started to develop friendships with these degenerate gamblers who were at the poker club every day. And those weren't the people I wanted to befriend.
Mhm.
So I was home watching a David Copperfield magic special one night. And I had worked on magic since I was 6 years old when my uncle pulled a quarter out of my ear.
Mhm.
And I would always dabble. I had worked in a magic shop as a kid, and magic was always something that was one of my huge hobbies. And I found myself pulling out a deck of cards and practicing. And sorry, I'm getting choked up.
Mhm.
Um, and I discovered there was a local club in Hollywood called the Magic Castle, which is a private club for magicians and their guests. And I threw caution to the wind and I went and I auditioned. And I passed the audition.
Wow.
Um, and then so I would go every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and I would, kind of lurk and watch other magicians and try to get the courage to actually sit down at a table.
Mhm.
There was this one magician who saw how good of a magician I was, but
Mhm.
that I wasn't performing. And he took me under his wing. He said, John, anytime you see me performing impromptu magic throughout the club and you want to come in and do one or two signature tricks of yours, just give me a nod. And I'll introduce you, bring you up, and let you do your two tricks so you feel comfortable. And then you can step away and I'll finish the show. It only took me twice doing that. And
Wow.
that gave me that confidence to
Mhm.
put together 20, 30 minutes of magic
Mhm.
and sit down and start performing.
Mhm.
When people would walk up to my table and they'd sit down and they were curious, they
Mhm.
were distracted by my facial paralysis. And not in a judging way. They were like, did he have Bell's palsy? Did he have a stroke? Well, why? And I found that detracted from their enjoyment of the magic.
Mhm.
So I changed on a dime. I said, I would open my show and say, guys, my name is John. I've been doing magic all my life. In 2002, I had a brain tumor. When they cut out my brain, they traumatized my facial nerve, hence the paralyzed face. But something happened to me on the operating room table. Now, I'm not sure what it was because I was unconscious. All I know is I recovered. I realized I had acquired some new skills. And then I would pause. And I would wait for all the audience members to get on the edge of their chair, wanting desperately to know what kind of skills I could have acquired from having brain surgery. And I would look to my right and my left, and I would lean in and whisper in a loud voice, guys, I think I'm able to visualize people's thoughts.
Mm.
And then I would go do some mental magic. And what that did, without me realizing it, was that took my biggest life challenge and
Mhm.
turned it into my superpower.
So cool.
And audiences would immediately accept me because number
Mhm.
one, it answered the question they were scared to ask because it wasn't appropriate. And two, it allowed me to share something uber personal about myself with the audience.
Mm.
And when you're doing any kind of presentation and you share something that's painful to you, you share something that is something that you tend to hide from
Mhm.
with other people, they immediately resonate with that and they immediately embrace you with love and care.
Mhm.
And in my case, attention. So as I perform my magic, I would learn everybody's name and I would reinforce the people's names as I would say, you know, Kelly, I want you to do this, or Jane, I want you to do that, or whatever. And they were engaged, man. They looked me on my face, into my heart, and really just enjoyed the experience.
Mhm. It's amazing.
I talk about women and how at the Magic Castle you have to dress up. I was wearing a coat and a tie, and women would dress to the nines. And they would come to the table sitting down, and I would look at their body language. And they were leaning back in their chair, their arms crossed, their legs crossed, and kind of just leaning back with a sort of grin on their face because they didn't know who I was. They didn't know what I was about. They didn't know what my motives were. But once I started my show and I'd started learning their names and involving them in the magic and making the magic about them and not me,
Mhm.
I noticed a shift in their body language. Their arms dropped to their side and their legs planted their feet planted on the ground. And they started leaning in.
Mm.
And by the end of the show, I was getting asked for permission to get hugged by these women
Mhm.
because that's women, the femininity, that's how women show their affection is to give you a big bear hug,
Mhm.
but in today's society, it's women aren't allowed to do that.
Mhm.
They have to be careful because of the Matt Lauers and all the sexual predators out there
Mhm.
that they don't give of themselves.
Mhm.
But I was making these connections to these women that I didn't expect.
Mhm.
So a couple of them, I asked if I could get their number so I could call them a day or two later and just talk about what was going through their mind, what was going through their heart, because I really can't read their mind.
Mhm.
And a couple agreed, so I had conversations, and I would say, so excuse me, what made the difference? Why did you all of a sudden going from standoffish to wanting to give me a hug?
Mhm.
And they didn't know. And I said, I've been thinking a lot of it. Is it possible I gave you permission to be feminine again? And most of them started crying
Mhm.
because I realized that was it.
Mhm.
They had lost their ability to just be loving
Mhm.
without the fear of being attacked.
There's something so magnetic when you are around someone who is so accepting of themselves and willing to share vulnerabilities. There's an instant magnetism to that person because I think for so many of us, we're on this journey of self-acceptance. And when you see someone who has fully accepted themselves, you can very much be drawn to them because that is a superpower to say, this is all of me, this is the full aspect of me, and I'm accepting of every aspect of myself. And I think there's so
Yeah,
many of us that put on that front trying to get to that feeling. And when you're around somebody who is accepting of themselves, you get drawn to them because it's like something so many of us desire. And there was something you said in your TED talk that really stuck out with me. You said you went from invisible to invincible. And that is just so powerful where you share that because I think so many of us just want to feel seen, feel heard, and feel loved. And to be around someone who's like you, who's gone through, hiding out for so long to then putting yourself in front of people with this acceptance of yourself, that's such a power. And that is really inspiring to so many that are around you to see that. So it's incredible.
And it's not up here in your head,
Mhm.
it's in your heart.
Absolutely.
And
Mhm.
when you learn how to accept yourself, you learn how to love yourself again, despite whatever your flaws are.
Mhm.
Um, it makes you attractive,
Yeah.
and not in a romantic or sexual way,
Mhm.
but on a deep human level.
Mhm.
And it's your secret sauce. And
Yeah.
people want some of that secret sauce because
Mhm.
they see the joy in your eye and your smile and your actions. And they want to live their lives as joyfully as I am.
Mhm.
And that's why I became a coach,
Mhm.
to help people get out of their own way.
Right.
Many people get out of their own way. I talk about dreaming in my coaching practice.
Mhm.
As a kid, I remember my parents would have friends come over as I was 6 or 7. And the first thing their friends would say, John, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mhm.
And I would say, I want to be a doctor. No, wait, I want to be a fireman. No, wait, I want to be a rock star. And I'd go into my room and grab 2 rulers and start banging on stuff and start playing my air guitar. And I'm in a land of make believe where
Mhm.
everything is possible. And I could be there for hours till mom called me for dinner, you
Mhm.
know? And then at some point you grow up and you go to school and you get a job and you build a career and you get to retirement age.
Mhm.
And then you look back and
Mhm.
you go, is this all there was?
Mhm.
Why do I
Yeah.
feel so empty? I did
Right.
everything I wanted to do. And what in those moments, what people realize is that they were living someone else's dream.
Mhm.
They weren't living their own dream,
Right.
you know? And it's
Mhm.
so unfulfilling to live someone else's dream.
Mhm. Which yeah, which is so ironic becomes that because that becomes the true illusion that you think that you're on the path of happiness, but you're really just on the path of emptiness because you're not actually pursuing what your soul's here to do or your own purpose or your true
Yeah.
essence. You've discarded it in an act of either self-protection or the act of trying to fit in or that sense of belonging that so many of us seek out and thinking that if we assimilate or do what everybody else expects of us, then there's gonna be happiness behind that.
How many people grow up doing
Mhm.
for a living what their parents did,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
And that's because our parents wanted us to be, my parents were both attorneys. They
Mhm.
didn't care that they didn't want me to be an attorney. They wanted me they taught me real valuable lessons. Like, we want you to be happy.
Yeah.
We want you to do what brings you joy.
Mhm.
But a lot of people out there are not like that.
Mm-mm.
A lot of parents insist that their kid go into their profession or take over the family business or
Mhm.
whatever, and you feel obligated because they're your parents.
Mhm. Right.
You don't wake up and smell the coffee and say, sorry, mom, sorry, dad, that's not what I want to do.
Right.
You can get someone else you can hire someone to do that. That's
Mhm.
that's not my legacy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oftentimes it becomes your legacy, and
Mhm.
then it's too late,
Mhm.
you know.
And so many people go through years of our life without even asking the question like, "What do I want?" Without the input of so many other voices that end up screaming, but we don't listen to those little voices within us that say, "This is what you want." And that's why I love your story of like going back to the magic because that was something that was meaningful to you as a child, and then you can very much get lost in that. But it's like getting back in tune with your childlike essence. What was it that filled your heart back then? And that often is the answer for so many of us. Like, what is it that was meaningful to me before all the messages shrouded the light of what was trying to come out? It's powerful.
I learned in magic that nothing is impossible.
Mhm.
There's always a way to accomplish everything. And so I coined my coaching practice. The method is called the I'm possible method because impossible, if you break it up into two words, it really means I'm possible.
Mhm. Love that.
And if you really take that to heart, you
Mhm.
lose any of those restrictions that you put on yourself,
Mhm.
that life has put on you.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't do that. That's impossible. And
Mhm.
there's so many stories about, you know, breaking the minute mile and all of a sudden, someone does it. Now 15 other people do it
Mhm.
in the span of a year. It's your own limiting beliefs that keep you from living your best life.
Mhm.
And so in my coaching practice, we spend a lot of time talking about limiting beliefs
Mhm.
and are they serving you or not?
Mhm. Absolutely.
And I mean, I've seen such transformation in my clients. Um, it brings me so much joy to be able to change people's outlook and
Mhm.
change people's perception of themselves and
Mhm.
desires and start dreaming again.
Right. It's so profound because so many of us, I think that you have to keep adding things on, but it's really removing the things that allow you to actually shine your brightest. And I'm curious, going back to everything you experienced, you could have easily said, life is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? How did you make that transition to then realizing that it was your superpower to come out of this and have a message and a voice for others?
Well, I teach that things in your life happen for you,
Hmm.
not to you.
Right. Hmm.
And that's just a twist in perception.
Hmm.
And that's a decision you make. Happiness is a choice. Joy is a choice. You know, I'm not an uber religious person. Um, but I do really believe that it's in within ourselves to decide who we want to be, how we want to show up. And the world is our oyster.
Hmm.
And we have to tune out the noise and just make a decision on who we want to be and start living that life. And you alienate some friends, as Mel Robbins says, let them.
Hmm. Right. And then let me, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
let them. Let them be in their own world. Let them be haters. But do not let them affect who you are.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Life is too short.
Mhm. 100%. It's so empowering, and for someone who's listening right now, maybe they're in the thick of a really, really challenging struggle right now, and they're hearing this, and I truly believe messages get to people who need to hear them when they need them the most, but for someone who maybe is tuning in right now, is listening, and they are in the thick of a struggle and feeling like, "How do I get myself out of this?" What is something you could say to that person that'd be, like, the first small step to start to see themselves and life differently?
Um, Practice breathing. So many of us panic
Mhm.
because you feel like the world is closing down in you from every side, and
Mhm.
your body tenses and your stomach tenses and your brain starts going a mile a minute with bad thoughts.
Mhm.
Just close your eyes and relax. You know, go get your favorite scent. I love vanilla, so I have a vanilla, spray can of scent. And so I just let my nose inhale that beautiful scent of vanilla or whatever your favorite scent is. Let it calm down. Let it calm you down and just embrace who you are
Mhm.
and develop a mantra. Egbach, everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
if you say that enough, you will believe it.
Mhm.
And just like magic, the stress level goes down and the hope goes up. And you start to believe that. You start to brainwash yourself and to believe that no matter what your challenge is, it's going to end up being okay.
Mhm.
Even with a stage 4 diagnosis, I deal with a lot of people who are stage 3 and stage 4 of cancer.
Mm.
And they're so scared that they shut down. And I'm like, this is the time to go scratch things off your bucket list and
Mhm.
live and really embrace the time you have left, as opposed to fear, the day where you're going to be unable to move or you're going to pass away. You know,
Mm.
you gotta live on your own terms.
Mhm.
And that's hard.
Right.
Through my magic and storytelling, I have countless people who I got them to decide to fight cancer.
Mhm.
And some of them actually beat it just because they believed in themselves. And I take no credit for curing cancer,
Mhm.
but I have countless clients and friends who say, if John can do it, damn, I can do it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it turns from this impossible thing to something that is truly possible.
It's amazing. And just like what you said, what's coming to me is that you had that choice to either kind of stay hidden and not let your voice be heard, but look at all the people that you've impacted when you accepted yourself, when you came out and let your voice be heard by so many, that it's that ripple effect because you made the choice that, like, I'm going to choose to live differently. I'm going to choose to see how this is working for me. There's so much power in your choice, and then that ripple effect then affects other people that can choose differently. And that's really the power. Some of us can be like, oh, how do I change the world? It's through that. It's through going within and recognizing that what power you have. And then that influences so many people. So that's the true magic in that, and being able to share that energy with people and give them that inspiration to truly change their lives.
I also coach magicians,
Hmm.
because I still love magic and I still perform, but I love, I'll have a magician come over to my house and we'll sit down, and the first thing they do is pull out a deck of cards. And I'm like, no, we're not going to use those today. Put them back in in the bag, and they pull out a bunch of coins. I say, sorry, we won't be using those today either. And they look at me with this look like, why am I paying you to coach me on magic if we're not going to learn any magic? And I said, no, 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 you're here. I want to understand who you want to do magic for, why you chose magic as your art form. What do you want your audience to learn from your magic about you? And many magicians don't think about it that way. They just want to perform trick after trick with no through line, with no ending message. And I'm like, if that's what you want, there are resources out there. There are books, there are magic schools, there are videos, there's all sorts of resources out there. I want you to perform magic and share something of yourself through that magic so that when the audience leaves, they forget about the tricks, but they remember how you made them feel.
Mm.
They understand what they learned about themselves. I had a young magic student, young, mid-20s, and we were doing it via Zoom. And his dad was paying for his magic lessons. And we had a dozen or so magic lessons. And then his dad called me and he said, John, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to pay for my son's magic lessons because I have stage 4 cancer and they're giving me 3 to 6 months.
Mm.
And I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, and to boot, my son is my world. And he is closed off the minute he found out that I was terminal.
Mm.
He's staying away. He's not returning my phone calls. He's scared. And he's choosing to push me out of his life. And he's my everything. And I don't know what to do about it. I said, let me have a shot. He said, please do whatever you can. So then I called his son and I said, look, I got a call from your dad, and he told me um, about his cancer diagnosis. And I don't know what resentment you have for him. I don't know all of the history, but the history doesn't matter. Your dad needs you at this time. And if you don't open yourself back up and be a part of his life, you are going to regret it for the rest of your life. And it's going to affect every relationship we have with girlfriends, with wives, with friends, because you're going to know that you had a chance to be in your dad's life again and support him and make him feel less alone. And you chose not to because you were scared. And he heard me. He said, John, I don't know, what do I do? And I said, what's your dad's favorite meal? He said, he loves Hawaiian pizza. I said, Friday night, go and get the largest Hawaiian pizza with extra pineapple and go to your dad's, knock on the door unannounced, bring it to him, put it on the kitchen table and say, Dad, come on, let's share a meal. And the next day his dad called me crying. He said, I don't know what happened, but my son came to me last night with my favorite meal. And I said, yeah, and I bet you there was extra pineapple. And he started laughing. And he said, thank you. That was the best gift I could have ever received, to have my son in my life again and share my journey for as long as I have left. You know, and I was on cloud nine.
Mhm.
And I was like, boy, I changed 2 lives tonight.
Yeah.
Just by that simple lesson. His son really respected me.
Mhm.
And when I talked to him about something so personal and reminded him that he was going to regret that choice for the rest of his life, he understood it. And now they spend the weekends together, you know, and it's why I was put on this earth.
Mhm.
I figured out my life's mission:
Mhm.
to get people out of their own way and to get people to share love with each other, and love is too short to hold grudges, and it's just, it fuels me, you know. I spend a lot of time on Facebook, and I'll be looking at someone's post, and they'll post something that's just not like them. It's not their words coming out. It's not the person I know.
Mhm.
So many of us see that and we just keep on scrolling.
Mhm.
Not me. I stop and I call that person. I don't text them. I don't email them. I call them.
Mhm.
That, hey, I saw that post you put on Facebook. What's going on? Let's talk about it. And it's their cry for help. They're crying out for help. And so many of us just assume that someone else is gonna reach out. But I don't have the time, Yeah, you got the time. You got the time to just be present in someone else's life when they cry out for help. It's what we do for each other. It's the way we heal the world, one interaction at a time. Period.
Mhm.
You got to make that effort.
So much beauty in the eyes. So many people are just rushing on to the next thing, only looking at their own lives, but not interacting or realizing, like, how can I help somebody else feel seen? How can I help somebody else feel heard in this moment? And if we ever more people did more of that, I think this whole world would be in a better place. And it's just profound that, those acts, like, so many people are searching for their sense of purpose, but it's those acts that, like, maybe today somebody felt a little bit more heard because you were there. Maybe today somebody felt like they were understood because you were there. And those are that's the purpose. That is the purpose of giving people that gift of love and compassion and being there and seeing people beyond the superficial things that we often see people for.
And
Profound.
what you don't realize is that the more you do it, the happier you'll get. You'll
Mhm.
become,
Right.
because you
Mhm.
realize your significance in the world and your accomplishments in helping others cope with whatever they're going through.
Mhm.
Um, and it's something you become proud of,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
It's these memories don't go away.
Mhm.
And when you're down, when I'm down, everybody gets down from time to time. I remember some of those success stories,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden I don't feel so bad anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's it's amazing how helping someone else you get tenfold back for
Mhm.
yourself. One good act, act of kindness, you get tenfold back for yourself.
Yeah. Profound.
Oh, true.
I think Ed Milet says that he says, when you feel helpless, get helpful. And it's just, it's such a switch when you start to see like you were in your own world, but you start to see what gift you could give other people, and it just pulls you out of that. You realize what you're capable of. And I'm curious, just on a daily basis, to be able to be fully present for people and be able to have that ability, what are some practices that you do to help yourself have that energy to be present for people, have that energy to share that compassion, what does that look like for you to fill your cup so that you're full for other people?
Learn how to use the do not disturb button on your phone.
Love it.
You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
it's an hour or 2 hours out of your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, just being present with people, being supportive, learning how to listen
Mhm.
as opposed to learning how to judge.
Yeah.
You know, people don't want to be judged. They
Mhm.
just want to be heard. They want to be supported. My last story is that, when one of my favorite celebrities, Alex Trebek, came out with his cancer diagnosis on national television, what courage that took. And when he was talking about his fight to live another day, and he was going to beat cancer, I was moved so much that I found his daughter, Nikki. And I said, Nikki, I need to perform magic with your dad.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to take no for an answer because I've helped other people go through severe cancer diagnoses. And I can't say that I've cured them in any way, shape, or form, but I've helped them put their life in terms. And
Mhm.
so they hired me to perform for Alex and 30 of his friends and family. And he was sitting right beside me, and there's video on my website, johnkippen.com, of that performance.
Mhm.
But after we were done, um, Alex and I went into another room at a restaurant. And I said, Alex, I just want to let you know that I seek you out because I wanted to share some joy. I wanted to share some magic with you to give you that courage to show how much your message to us resonated with me. And um, you are loved. Unlike the Matt Lauers of the world, you are above reproach. And I wanted to be one of those many people who remind you how much your life's work mean to all of us. And he stopped me. And he said, John, you're the first.
Mhm. Wow.
And I got goosebumps.
Wow.
And I said, what? He says, no one ever takes the time to thank me for my life's work.
Wow.
And that knocked the wind out of my sails. And I was like, well, Alex, I am proud to be number one. And you mean the world to me, to the world, to my friends, family. Sorry, I'm getting over COVID.
Mhm.
So, and we embraced,
Wow.
and it brought tears to his eyes. And it was another one of my proudest moments.
Mhm.
And I would never have had that opportunity if I didn't seek his family out and just say, I didn't say, can I perform? I
Mhm.
said, I need to perform for your dad.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they saw that authenticity in me.
Mhm.
And they said, absolutely, you can,
Wow.
So
What an incredible moment for everyone there, for you, for Alex, for his
yeah,
family. What what that
living your
meant
life
to
on your
everyone.
terms
Mhm.
and don't let others stop in get in your way
Mhm. Yeah.
to change a life.
Mhm. So powerful.
The
Thank
most
you.
fulfilling thing you can do for another person
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
just be with them, to listen to them, to coach them, to just make them feel less alone.
Mhm. Thank you so much. I feel like this is a message that needs to be said over and over and over again, and really just take it to heart and realize that every one of us has so much power within us to transform someone's life and the world. And I'm just so grateful for everything you shared today. I know it's going to make a big impact in anyone who listens. And just before we wrap things up, I'd love for you to share where people can connect with you and where can they find your book?
So if you go to johnkippen.com
Mhm.
/free gift,
Mhm.
you'll sign up. I'll collect your name and email address, and you'll get an automatic reply with a link to download the book. The link is password protected, but the password's easy. It's my
Mhm.
name,
Yeah,
John Kippen, no space.
there you go.
And it's it's one it's a bestseller at
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble. And because I wrote it from my heart,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know.
I can feel it. You can feel it just in this conversation. I'm sure the book just really resonates with so much of what you've said, but like you can feel that your passion for everything, for life, for helping people, you can feel it. It's tangible through this. So I'm sure the book just shares so much of what you've experienced and what you're sharing with the world.
And if coaching is something you want to look into, just go to kippencoaching.com,
Mhm.
look at the website, click on a link to get a free 45-minute Zoom call with me.
Mhm.
Let's see what we can do together. Let's see
Amazing.
how you can make the rest of your life meaningful.
Mhm. Love that. Thank you so much again. And again, anyone who's listening, definitely connect with John. And I'm so grateful for everything you shared today. This has been tremendous, and I know will impact someone who's listening very deeply. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Kelly, for the opportunity.